Today we're going to be taking a look at some different screenshots showcasing some different comparisons between the first ever reveal for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and the most recent one, and kind of going over some of the different color palette changes as well as some of the graphical changes that they've made to these characters since then. So shout out to SLO Plays. They were the ones that actually kind of brought these screenshots together. They have their own video and obviously their own channel. I'll link both of those to the description if you guys want to check that out. But let's go ahead and jump into this first screenshot. I don't really have them in any particular order here, but this is going to be base Goku here, and you can see that there's not much changing in the actual detail, but the color palette and the overall lighting is definitely significantly better in the after part, right? This one seems very washed out. It seems very like blue toned. Now, it could just be the fact that they were kind of like on Namek, I believe, on the first reveal, if I kind of remember the setting correctly. And in the after one, they weren't necessarily in. I think they're on planet Earth. So it could be the fact that there's just kind of a setting difference here. And that's going to be kind of the take for a lot of these ones. But overall, you can kind of see that even like the eyes almost seem like they're a little bit more centered, a little bit more closed in. I don't know if that's just, again, maybe the shading makes it look like that. But it kind of feels like the one on the left, his eyes are a little like, longer outwards versus the one on the right. It kind of seems like they're more scrunched together, but it could be just like an illusion thing based on the lighting that I'm looking at. But other than that, you can kind of see the same details in the nose and the mouth and stuff like that. So it's not too much of a difference, but I definitely like the color palette for the right one versus the left one. The left one seems like it kind of needed touched up in in Photoshop and just didn't get the love that it needed, to get the editing and stuff like that. So this is obviously a first reveal, and then this one's the most recent one. So it's definitely going to look a little bit better. You can even see the eyebrow ridge. Now that I'm kind of looking about it, right above the nose there is actually a little bit shrunken in. So it actually makes me think that maybe I'm kind of right, that most of his features were kind of like pushed kind of together to make, a little bit more fitting to his face and not so like wide-eyed. So let's go ahead and jump into the next one. So again, I don't have these in any particular order, but this is going to be kind of a controversial one for me. So this is going to be Goku God, obviously. So the left one, I don't think it's bad. This is the before, but I don't think it's that bad. I think the issue with this one is it's a little bit too blue toned. It doesn't have it looks like Goku ain't ever gone outside for a day, bro. Like it looks like he ain't got no tan. Like, and you can obviously see on the mouth there, he's losing a lot of detail. You can't even see his mouth on the left side. But I do think the lighting and the overall shading kind of looks a little bit more dynamic, maybe, or maybe more dramatic. But it doesn't make too much sense if you're kind of looking at the right one here, based on the fact that the shading for this one is a little bit more based on the sun being like on the right side. And if the sun's based on like the same side, you kind of get an idea that he would have a shadow over his face. So it definitely makes more sense. And you can see that they kind of toned down, that blue tone here, and they kind of made it a little bit more neutral, a little bit more skin tone colored, right? So I definitely think that they kind of retouch up the palette. But honestly, I kind of like the left one a little bit. I kind of like the index right here of that eyebrow ridge being a little bit more defined, and even the nose has a little bit more crinkle to it than the one on the right. He kind of seems like he has a little bit more of a flat face. It doesn't have too many more details, honestly, if I'm looking back and forth. But I think the one on the left just suffers from the fact that it's too a little washed out. If they kind of went with this same kind of like look to it and kind of like made it a little bit more of this color scheme, I think it would have worked a little bit better. I do like the actual gi that Goku's wearing in this one. I think the colors are a little bit better, but this one actually kind of reminds me of the way it is when you transform in the old Tenkaichi games, because you'd always have this kind of like glow to your actual clothing. So it was kind of an interesting thing. So maybe that's a nostalgia trip. But I always remember like whenever you'd wear like the orange gi, it almost looked kind of yellow whenever they went Super Saiyan and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see. So yeah, I think on this one it's kind of a back and forth for me, but I definitely understand why maybe they went with the right one. And it's kind of hard to say based on like, it's not the exact same take. It's obviously in a couple of different areas. So it's hard to say like how the sun's setting and stuff like that, but I can definitely see like more of the tones that I like in the right one, and maybe some of the different things on the gi. But yeah, I think the left one just, I don't know, it looks more detailed. Now this one though, I do actually think I like the right one better. It's more dynamic and a little bit more darker shaded. His hair especially seemed way bright, bro. Like it didn't really have any contrast to it, and it didn't have any real color scheme to it. And you can also tell with the different colors of, the different shades and stuff like that of blue. I think the right one just has a lot more color palette to it. It almost seems like it's a lot more contrast. It just has a lot more going on versus the left one. The left one seems like, again, it kind of seems like they kind of suffer from a little bit of, I don't know, it's like kind of washed out, bro. It's like they kind of didn't bring down the darkness and the shadows and stuff like that to make the contrast really fit. They just kind of let him have it, bro. And you can tell by like the skin color over here that it's a little bit washed out, even on the side of his face. I mean, over here on the right, you can still tell that it's almost like the same shade. It's the fact that the darkening here on the different shadows and stuff like that, it's just enough darkening to kind of contrast that light to not make that one seem so washed out, in my opinion anyway. So I'm not a, you know, color grade expert or nothing, but I do a thumbnail or two. So this is something that I kind of can understand. You can see different shadings and stuff like that. So again, it's hard to tell because it might not be the exact same shot, but you can kind of tell from some of the different shadings and lightings here and the highlights that it probably is very similar shot, because you do see some of the different highlights and especially some of the different shadows. It kind of seems like maybe it was taken a second later, but this might just be kind of an incorrect highlight on his neck there. That's the only one that kind of seems weird, that it's like really big like that. But overall, I think the right side looks a lot better. Just graphically, I think it looks pretty much the same. You know, if we're kind of comparing the graphics here, I definitely don't think it's like a huge boost, but you can definitely tell from some of the dynamic colors and stuff like that, that I personally think the one on the right just had a little bit more detail, maybe more love, you know, a little bit more time to it. So you can tell that the first one's a little bit more of like a, you know, first rendition or something like that, or like kind of a first pass. And then they kind of went back into it and then they did the right one. Now this one, however, I think is almost night and day, bro. I feel like this is a total glow up. Like Vegeta got a Vegeta got a buff, bro. Like the one on the left, it doesn't look bad, but this kind of looks like a little bit like dated graphics, I guess I could say. It definitely looks like Vegeta, but the right one, that's Vegeta, bro. like this is like more of a modern, like kind of what I expected from the overall theme and kind of color palettes, as well as just the structure of the face. You can see that they're actually kind of put a lot more detail in here. The kind of the way the eyes looked are a lot more intense, and it's just maybe the fact that they have like a kind of nice little purple highlight in them, whereas the left one does not. But you can just definitely tell that the actual face structure itself is not like like this one almost looks like they went straight down, went straight. Like it's a bunch of straight lines that don't ever really kind of have any contour or any kind of like leveling to them. Like this one actually has like a nice little face shape, but you can't really see, I guess, because the Gallic gun rather is a little brighter. It's obviously a different contrast as well, so it's obviously going to have a different light on top of him, so it does make it a little bit more dynamic, and it does kind of brighten up the face because obviously he has a huge beam of light right next to his head. But yeah, even touching about the colors, like I said, it really just seems like if you're looking at just the color palette itself, that they just kind of went in here and really just, you know, color toned it. They basically just made a color grade and they just kind of shifted, if you're talking about specifically just the colors. Now, like I said, Vegeta's face is completely different. Like I think this is so much better. This is like 10 times better in terms of like the way it looks, but you can even tell like some of his armor bits and stuff like that are just color graded in a different way. And that's obviously respective of the light from his Gallic gun being a little bit different. It's obviously more of a pinkish purple instead of just a straight up bluish purple, which, you know, obviously is more akin to like the type of moves he does. But yeah, I definitely think that this was way better. I think Vegeta looks insane in terms of right to left. So let's move on to the next one, and this is going to be kind of a controversial one, and this is Cell. So I've seen this one kind of floating around a little bit, and the fact of the matter is the right one is like just the way he looks, like that makes sense, but the left one doesn't look bad because he's in a volcanic area. So I thought the fact that he was color graded with the left one is just the fact that he was in a place that was color graded to where he was at, right? So the right one kind of just looks like bro's just here. Like he ain't being affected by any of the color schemes on the outside of it. It's supposed to be in a volcanic area, right? So it's supposed to have all kinds of lava and all kinds of reds and hues of orange and stuff like that. So I would say like the actual like I guess you call it like bug shell part of him. I don't really ever know what you call his little crown thing, but I would say that the green here is definitely more akin to like what he would have in the actual anime. And his face shape doesn't seem too different, but it does seem a little bit better in terms of like color palettes for the purples and stuff like that. Definitely a lot darker purples, but like I said, I think this one is actually fine. This one is pretty good too. And this was one of the screenshots when I first saw it. I was like, damn, Cell looks good as hell, dude. Like this is actually a really good screenshot. So they didn't really change anything else. It looks like they just really colored, you know, differently. I think they just went in and made it a little bit different. So it's not like the Vegeta one where they kind of went in and reshaped some of the structure of the face. It's just really just a color palette thing, it looks like. And some of the, even it has like some of the same shading too. You can kind of tell underneath the eyes and next to the nose, and a little bit under the mouth is different. You can see that it's a little bit different just because it's a little darker under here, and this is all kind of one tone on this right side. But yeah, I would just say that the left one is just more of an environment thing, right? Like I don't really think it was that bad. So this one though, this one honestly is pretty much like the same. This is just kind of a first reveal and a second reveal. So between these two, you could just tell that he's obviously battle damaged in this right one. But I don't really think it's really that different. You can just kind of see that some of the different shadows are a little bit more etched in and a little bit more defined, right? So you maybe have like a couple of different things, but these are kind of cosmetic stuff that had happened from the actual fight, like the bruises and stuff like that, just make them look better. But the eye structure just looks like it has maybe a little bit of a highlight on this left side, and maybe a little bit of highlight on that right side. So really just highlighting, it looks like, and a little bit of the darkening of colors and different shadows. But again, this one's not too much of a big deal because a lot of the stuff in these aren't really that comparable because they got beat the hell out of. Basically, he doesn't even have a Saiyan armor, but his hair does look a little bit lighter of a blue, right? So it does have like that nice contrast. So I really just think that overall, for a lot of these, that they just kind of went in there and restructured the way that they color stuff. Now this one, however, this one is one of those ones that I feel like changed quite a bit. So the Goku one I've seen floating around, and I gotta say this last reveal was probably way better, bro. The lighting's not only better, but the fact of the matter is, I think his whole face, and the fact that they kind of removed the bangs, bro had bangs upon bangs when he first came out. That first reveal is kind of wild, and you can see some clipping and stuff like that, but we don't really critique that because that's more of like a graphical issue at the very beginning, and they obviously, you know, fixed that term and kind of went through it. But yeah, just kind of looking at the facial structure and stuff like that, you can definitely tell that they had a little bit more of a longer face when the first reveal came out, and they kind of shaped out his face. Like the bottom one looks way more like Goku, but the top one doesn't look bad. It looks kind of like a younger Goku, I guess. To kind of look at it, kind of looks like maybe a younger Goku, or, you know, a little bit different because the bangs kind of throw me off. I think that's the biggest thing about the hair here is just like, I don't know why he has so much bangs. Like he's never had that. So it's just kind of a weird thing to kind of see it like stacked upon each other like that. And maybe it's just the way the structure is. This middle one's probably the worst one. But yeah, whenever you remove that bang and then you kind of like space them out, and then you obviously color grade some of the different things to make it kind of more highlighted and have a lot better facial expression. Like honestly, I think the eyes are a lot wider. They obviously have more detail. It's different colors, so it's not really necessarily like too much more detail, but it's just a different color scheme. And I think the grading and kind of the way his face is a little bit more rounder, a little bit more defined, definitely looks a lot better. You can see some of the different details and stuff like that around his head, or around his mouth there, as well as like, you know, in the eye structure and stuff like that are more profound with some of these different lines. So yeah, overall, I think they're going in the right direction. I don't think they're probably going to change too much more. Honestly, I feel like this is probably the last little run of stuff we're going to see, but we could definitely see some different renditions and stuff like that. I think a lot of the different trailers now probably have pretty final forms and stuff like that in terms of like the way the characters are going to look and feel.